Cool. It's 2 p.m. You guys should all find a seat.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Hi, John. Huh? It's not 99, it's a quotation mark. Okay. So, as you all know, it may or may not be a holiday weekend this weekend. So, I would like to encourage you to stand and go across the room and ask someone what their favorite type of candy is.
Whoa. Your preference. Oh no. Here go mommy. Here go daddy. Daddy, look. Here, look, daddy. Uh-oh. You go say hi to my teacher? Here, let's go say hi to my teacher. Oh yeah? You say hi to daddy? Daddy shark? Oh, you go mommy? Mommy's not busy.
John, come here. Come here. We were talking about our favorite candy, and Andre's like, I like Sour Patch. I was like, oh, which one? Like watermelon, the original. And he went, no, it's kids, bro. I love kids. Wait.
Okay, return to your seats.
Oh yeah?
Everyone better be able to name the taste preference of someone else in this room. Go back. Alan, who did you talk to? What do they like?
I talked to my sister and PK and Brianna. No, she changes. It's trolley worms. And PK's is Sour Patch Kids Watermelon Edition.
Hi, happy. Hi, Jason Melody. Happy maybe holiday weekend. We were asking people what their favorite candy is.
To Brianna, her favorite candy is chocolate.
Ooh. Chocolate is a good choice. And Brianna, who did you talk to?
Circle, but Alan said mochi, and he gave his argument why mochi is candy.
Mochi is definitely not candy, Alan. I don't know what you're on. Yeah, I know.
Archie and Marva. I forgot. Oh, and Andre. Andre likes kids.
That's a little messed up, bro. Alright, we're moving on. Michael, who'd you talk to?
Times likes gummies.
Okay.
Andre likes kids.
No one else is allowed to say Andre's preference.
Oh, wait. I talked to John, who told me that Andre likes kids.
Okay, we're ending this icebreaker now. Where's your team come up? Thanks for participating.
Okay, hello, good afternoon, everyone. If you could all take a stand. Okay, let's just give this morning to God. Quiet down our hearts. Dear God, thank you for gathering us all here. Thank you for giving us another wonderful morning. All the blessings that you've bestowed on us. We're so grateful for you. In Jesus' name. When the music fades, all is stripped away, and I simply come, longing just to bring something that's a worth that will bless your heart. I'll bring you more than a song, for a song in itself is not what you have required. You search much deeper within, through the way things appear. You're looking into my heart. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I've made it, when it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. King of endless world, no one could express how much you deserve. Though I'm weak and poor, all I have is yours. Every single breath, I'll bring you more than a song, for a song in itself is not what you have required. You search much deeper within, through the way things appear. You're looking into my heart. I'm coming back to the heart of worship. It's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I've made it, when it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. God, we gather here before you. No matter how distracted we were this week, Lord, I pray that we set our gaze back to you. When the music fades, all is stripped away, and I simply come, longing just to bring bless your heart. I'll bring you more than a song, for a song in it's is not what you have required. You search much deeper within, through the way things appear. You're looking into my heart. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I've made it, and it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. God, as we just sang just now, Lord, if we've forgotten you this week, I pray that you forgive us. Lord, we are approaching you today. We are coming back to you. Lord, I pray that you just open up our hearts so we can receive you. In Jesus' name. God of Abraham, you're the God of covenant, faithful promises. Time and time again, you have proven you do just what you say. Though the storms may come, the winds may blow, remain steadfast. And let my heart learn, speak a word, come to pass. Great is your faithfulness to me. Great is your faithfulness to me. From the rising sun to the setting same, I will praise your name. Great is your faithfulness to me. God, from age to age, though the earth may pass away, your word remains the same. Your history can prove there's nothing you can't do. You're faithful and true. Though the storms may come and the winds may blow, remain steadfast. And let my heart learn, speak a word, come to pass. Great is your faithfulness to me. Great is your faithfulness Thank you for being so faithful towards us. I pray that as we continue to worship you, you just touch deep into our souls. In Jesus' name, amen. There's a name that levels mountains, carves out highways through the sea. Seen its power unravel battles right in front of me. There's a faith that stands defiant, we welcome you into this open space. Lord, come and have your way with us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Hello. Hi. It is the last Sunday of October. Nice to see you all. Yay! I wonder what day it is tomorrow. But actually for today's announcements, I just looked up harvest on Canva and put in some random pictures. So that's the theme. Yeah. Okay. First offering. GCCBronx.zell@gmail.com. No Bayside Young Adults. And then second important thing is make sure to come early next week because next week is the first week of the month. It will be maybe our last time doing communion with the CM? Question mark. Okay, good question. Yeah. So make sure you show up next week for communion. We'll be going upstairs, but you don't have to come until 11:30, so you don't have to sit through both. All right, general updates. Wow, this is a really bright pink. There's a hedgehog with an apple on its back. So just a September offering summary. Bayside, there's about 23,000 of offering, and then the balance remaining is 8,736. And then Flushing has 4,380, and then there's a negative balance, I think, which is maybe not good, but hopefully we figure it out. Pray for the finance department. And then November is Mission Month at our church, which they said that in the CM they're gonna be introducing like one missionary every single week, like that the church supports. But I don't think we're doing that unless Pastor Calvin wants to. But we'll be seeing some of the missionaries on November 27th. Yeah. Okay. Sunday school updates. This is a new slide that I feel like I've never made before. But Sunday school will be packing shoe boxes for Operation Christmas Child again. So that will be happening with more details, and we'll be helping them on November 20th. They had a Halloween party, I guess, apparently, and none of us were invited. And then also, Wanyai, Lily, and Brianna are coming up with a new teaching plan for Sunday school that will start in January. It sounds like they have like a lot of new activities planned to, help the kids get a relationship with God and know more about, cool stuff. Something was like, it was like poetry, like activities, like, I don't know what they said in the announcements, but that sounds cool. Okay, November 20th, just going back to what we said earlier, it is Pastor Kelvin's ordination at 4:30 p.m. in case you forgot. Make sure you stick around. That was for the youth group, but make sure you come. So in between morning service at 10:30 and the ordination time, we'll be helping Sunday school pack and ship shoe boxes. So just come at like a normal time or come around like 12. We can eat together and then we'll be packing and shipping shoe boxes. And then also there's a very interesting update in which we have been asked to prepare a song to sing as a group, as like EM during the ceremony. So we are being like this is not really like an option, but you are all being conscripted. And I think Brianna is leading that effort. So yeah, Pauline Communion is next week. It's the first week, Sunday of the month. But yeah, we are being asked to prepare a song. If you were there at Pastor Mo's ordination ceremony, they had like a whole choir because he was like leading the choir and he had a whole solo. But yeah, we need to make a song. And then dates to remember. You've seen this slide since last week and the week before, I think. So there's no 2 p.m. service, but make sure you show up to help pack shoe boxes. November 23rd, Thanksgiving. November 27th, missionary sharing at Bayside. And then I think we're in the works of planning an activity in lieu of service. Maybe ice skating? At my suggestion, because I really like ice skating. Okay, next. Today, we are cordially invited to Jason and Melody's housewarming, October 30th. Today, after service, until 7 p.m. Yeah, looking forward to the finger foods, board games, and random giveaway. Yeah. Finally, retreat. Well, this is not finally. There's still some more slides, but I think they're all repetitive. Retreat, make sure you get your form in, at least the form. And then the payment you can do a little bit later, but at least get the form into Andrew. Get that, just sign it, review all the rules, and it'll be $200 per person. Deadline is Thanksgiving, so do that. Okay, young adult cell group every Friday. Yeah, you guys come. It's cool to see you. If you don't come, you should come. And if you submit suggestions for sermon topics, you can dictate what we talk about every Friday. Young adult outreach thing. Times went on Boba Chat today. There's a leaf standing up on his head, and there's a sunflower on Andrew's head. They have cool hats. Yeah, we actually have Boba Chat budget, so please use it. The year is almost ending. Follow us on Instagram. Apples. Talk to Pastor Kelvin. There's wheat, and then there's the harvesting thingy. I forgot what it's called. Okay, wheat. Yeah, that could be you. Anyways, I will pray for the offering now. Okay, God, just thank you for this amazing month of October. Thank you for the bountiful harvest that we have had, and just want to pray that we're able to continue to steward these offerings and use our resources wisely. Pray for the finance department at church, and pray that they'll be able to make good decisions. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
All right. Thank you, Marva. A little bit too loud, Andrew. So long? Not that long. Times usually just blows by, right?
There was a lot to write.
Yeah. There was a lot? There was really a lot? Our meeting was like...
there was a lot to say today. Sometimes it's like not important.
Meeting was like 20 minutes. But okay. Anyways, so yeah, good morning. Good morning. I sound like Pauline now. Every morning. Every time we start Sunday service, it was like morning, just morning, but afternoon. Morning for some of you, right? So, yeah, okay. So anyways, let's just dive right in. We don't want to, we want to kind of, shorten things up so we can speed things up and, celebrate Jason Melody, them as a housewarm. No? Don't celebrate? Extend it? Okay, no need to rush. Okay, cool. We'll see how the Lord moves for us today, right? And so anyways, we're going to continue on in our series. We've been talking about freedoms, and especially recently, we've been kind of focusing on the family dynamics of our lives. And so starting next week, we are going to go back to really talking about the things that you want to talk about, the things that you want to really talk about freedom, like things that you've been held back, feel like you need to, you want to hear from a perspective of faith. Jot it down. There's going to be a QR code on every slide. Shoot it. We're gonna start pounding some topics as we go. Hey Karen, nice to see you forever. God, you aged. Okay. Anyways, yes, you got new tattoos too. Aged, right? Anyways, so we'll continue on and we're gonna talk in. So let's just dive into the word. We're gonna read from Matthew chapter 10, verse 34, 39 as we wrap up about issues at home. And Matthew chapter 10, verse 34, 39. You can read it with me. It'll be awesome. So the word of the Lord says this. Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemy will be the members of his own household. I heard that laughing. Anyone who loves their father or mother will be more than me will not be worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter or more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life for my sake will find it, right? Interesting words, right? These are difficult words. We'll talk more about like what this comes from. But I want to start off with this. They kind of talk about in society that there is three arenas of learning, or three schools of learning that happens around us. And the first one is basically what they call academia in the past. Now we call it the world because we're slowly in the 21st century realizing that people don't really get educated in school anymore, right? This is why they need more sophisticated teachers and examiners like hopefully the future teachers in this circle, right? But normally what they said is, your knowledge comes from, academics, right? It can be school now, right? Heck, even like YouTube for many of you guys. I bet you guys learn a lot from YouTube nowadays, right? I know like Daddy Lou learns everything from YouTube, right? And he replicates it, right? Or even that friend that mansplains everything even though you don't want him to. Right? But it's whatever we receive information and absorb it, we store it, right? We learn from them, right? And that's kind of a basis of where we go. And then another place that we really learn from is like your center of faith, right? It could be whatever faith out there. There's a center of faith, but for us, it is the church, right? It's a different narrative compared to what the world and academics is talking about. And it gives you a new perspective, right? Something kind of just to wrestle with, food for thought, to kind of shift our lens, shift our understanding of when we look at the world outside, and what's that look like? And then, of course, the third arena of learning is your family, right? There's a legacy that's involved in all of us, in each and every one of us, right? Because of our family of origin background, we all have some things that we learn from home that may not be actually legitimate in society or in our faith, but it happens because that's something that we have to wrestle with, and we have to ask ourselves a lot of times, right? Do I hold on to my legacy, or do I withhold, or is it time for me to leave these legacies behind and bring in new traditions? Or is my legacy wrestling with what the world is doing, and I rather follow my legacy, right? Or is faith involved in there where I need to adjust my legacy, right? And so there's a lot of thoughts in our minds and wrestling at all times if we think about this, because for many of us, if we don't know where we stand, it's confusing. This is a very confusing climate we're in, right? Is your school correct? Is the church correct? Is your family correct, right? And so the hardest thing for us is we really can't really do much in these adjustments in our lives, because it's just bombarded. And every situation we're in, we filter out these lenses in different ways, right? We might put on one lens on another lens, and on the same environment next time we use a different lens, and our lives get kind of confusing at times. And so this is why we need to, at least if we know that these are the schools of learning, many of our judgments and ideas and thoughts and choices come out from these schools. And our job and our role is to really clarify what these lenses look like in our lives, right? And so in our academic life, we really can't do too much because things are always changing, right? And so we do need the help of the other filters to kind of lens and focus what the world will look like. And so church, you learn more and more as you go, and that lens has to be adjusted and cleansed at times. But your family is one of those interesting lenses. As you get older and older, you can start to update, right? Especially if you're dating, in a process of getting married, or you're married already, your lens about family should change dramatically. There should be a huge update in our lives. But the problem is a lot of times we don't even update. And even for the younger dudes, like Andre, the youngest one here, who's not even thinking about like a life in college, or even being able to smoke, drink, and kill children, right? And so in his mind, he still has to update, right? Because he's no longer in elementary school. He's no longer in middle school, right? He's halfway through high school. And there's a lot of things, even in our family dynamics, that we have to learn to update. And it's our role and our duty to really start doing that, or else the family of origin stuff that we've been talking about can really start to come in upon us really heavily and overwhelm us, even though we are old, not in control of our home, but it feels like they are, right? And as we've been talking about throughout this, I forget how many weeks has been, 5 weeks? Almost? 6 weeks? 5, right? We did talk about the 4 dynamics of your parents, like your mom and dad every 2 weeks. Okay, yeah, 5 weeks, right? So 5 weeks of going on, right? And you realize that every one of us, we have so much different perspectives, right? You could even come from the same household and have different ideas of how the house looks like, right? Any of you guys got like insight since you guys started like meeting up on Fridays? Any cool insights about family origin stuff? Nothing. Okay. Time's not here, right? Time's is in the office. He's kapooing. What? How did all the boys just disappear? What? They're eating? Okay. Okay. Anyways, interestingly, right? You start to see like your build-up and your makeup really changes a lot, right? As you can see, your parents have a push in you, right? Depending on how your mom behaves or how your dad behaves, it really shapes you. And even how your sibling behaves around you, or how you see your parents reacting to them, changes your dynamic and perspective. So family issues is such a complicated matter. But what's important for many of you guys is really understanding who your parents were, who your siblings were, and more importantly, for your sake, is you have to recognize, like, how did you respond in the middle of all of that, right? Because depending on the combination of parental characteristics or your sibling characteristics, can really spin something in your life. But oftentimes there are two responses that we take from our family-oriented stuff. Right? From the environment that we're exposed to, we tend to take two sides. Even in a good family dynamic in your houses, a lot of times we will take on these two things, right? Because one of the things is, like, even if you were in a good home, as I oftentimes kind of remind you, is even though like your childhood was great, it was amazing, your parents were really loving and amazing, as you get older, all of us have a fear, right? There is this childhood fear that comes up, creeps up, and carries us through. And even in a safe environment, your greatest fear is that you will eventually disappoint your parents or people in your family that you care about. And that is a big fear. And so in order for us to run away from that fear or cope away from that fear, we tend to respond the same way as we would in a difficult environment at home. And so the two ways that we tend to do is we become an overachiever or a high achiever, or we be a self-saboteur. Or some of you guys, because you guys want to be bougie and cool like that, you do both at the same time, right? It's about where you fit in that spectrum, right? And so if you're a high achiever, how many of you guys think you guys are high achievers? High achievers, you're constantly proving your family that you have what it takes, even if it's a never-ending goal, right? You're always like hitting that next mark, right? It's kind of like you're waiting for them to really approve of you, and they'll be like, good, now this, right? Good, now this, right? And you finish world, and you become like Navy SEAL, astronaut, scientist, engineer, and all this stuff, and they're like, good, now you be president, right? It keeps going on. The problem is, like, the benchmark is never enough, right? The bar keeps moving, and you keep chasing it. And so, like, even as you develop and you become an adult, independent, that if you never really updated that mindset, it continues on, right? Because you know what the problem is? The problem is this. Do you guys ever like say that, oh, this is my dream, and when you achieve your dream, you're like, wow, that was it. Guys, too young, no one would accomplish a dream. Anybody had a goal? What? No, we're not talking about James. I'm talking about other people. Right? He's working on it. Sam is gonna beat him up. Don't worry. Right? Throw a fishing rod on him. Okay. Anyways, as you reach the goal, like, it feels like it's not enough. Right? You see it throughout the world. Right? One of the biggest things was when the oil, like when in the Middle East, when they discovered oil in the Middle East and it blew up, right? All the sheiks when they interviewed back then, they would be like, how would are you living a happy life? Because these guys, you guys know those videos in the Middle East, right? They like drive like Lamborghinis and they run out of gas, they just leave in the desert, right, and stuff, right? Because they have so much money, right? And you know what? The biggest things they ask them, like, are you happy, right? And they'll always be like, I'll only be happy if I had a little bit more money. Like, dude, like your like bank account is like size of people's like countries, like annual budget, right? But it's like, if I only have a little more, right? Because that benchmark always increases in our minds. Think about it. How many of you guys like have had a really, really fun experience, and the second time you do it is like, meh? How many of you guys have an addiction, like some type of weird addiction, right? Strange addiction, right? Right? And like the first time you did it, it was amazing, and then the second time you did it, it was not that great. But you're telling yourself, hey, if I keep pushing a little bit more, maybe I'll get the same high. And then we get caught in this cycle called addiction, right? Right? It's because, like, automatically once you reach a goal, your mind naturally will move the bar. But the problem is a lot of times the bar you'll never hit. And so your life becomes a never-ending cycle of hitting bars. And what's the error of that is you can never love yourself no matter how hard you try. you'll never really be, life will never feel enough, right? And you know why? This is why like scripturally and theology wise we talk about the adequacy of God in our lives, right? And it's kind of weird, right? The adequacy of God, right? Like God is adequate for you, right? That sounds weird, doesn't it? Because like in our mindsets we don't understand, like God is going to be more than enough for us, but we have to recognize that God is enough. Nothing else is necessary when we have God. Because a lot of us we have this mentality, like just in upbringing, because of our cultural dynamic, is that we are going to be somewhat high achievers in some area in our lives, right? We're going to find that 10 that we are, and we're going to keep pushing it until we're 11. But the bar is set at 10, not going any further, and you're just not happy. And the more you achieve, the less amount of joy you're going to feel if you continue on, right? So recently, you guys know I'm getting ordained on November 20th. I know Marva keeps bringing it up every single Sunday, right? Soon, by the time we keep announcing it every Sunday in November, it is really going to be, by the time we get to November 20th, it is going to be an ordinary service, right? But what the funniest thing is that I recognized was like everybody's so excited. Everybody's so excited. Like Lily invited like everybody and their moms and their moms' children's moms, right? Right? Yeah, the moms' children's moms, right? Them, right? And their wife, right? I don't know, whatever, right? And it's like wow, like and then like every time I'm going somewhere, like people are like congratulating me and like congratulations, you made it, right? And I'm just like they're like so excited, like do you want to get ordained for me, right? Like, right? I'm like what's like. I just took it as like something really, really, really normal. Right, like it's just like another day in the office kind of thing, right? And so on Tuesday I went to Sam's place because Sam only asked me for a few things. I bumped into Michelle, like just in passing, and Michelle was like, "Congratulations! I can't wait to celebrate on the 20th." And I was like I haven't talked to Michelle in like so long, and that was like the first conversation. And I was like, "Dang, this thing should be important." So I was like joking with her because she's a therapist. So I was like, it's kind of funny because I feel like everybody's so excited besides me. And this week I was wrestling with that, right? I was wrestling with like why is like everybody so happy for me and I'm not, right? And you start to realize this, and this is the reason why high achievers don't really feel the joy. They tend to see, as I was reading articles about this like weird thing about success and depression, because I do feel a bit like down, not really like okay fine, I can call it depression. My therapist will always call it depression, right? But what happens is like I'm reading a lot of articles, and even my therapist said it was kind of funny, right? And so what happens is a lot of especially PhD students, right? Especially they're doing their research, right? And a lot of times when you're in desperation, you need a research place, you'll find a research facility to do your research. And what happens a lot of times you get exploited, right? And so a PhD project that could actually just take a couple of years, they extend you there really long, painfully, right? And you feel like you're enslaved, exploited. So by the time you actually graduate with your degree and everybody calls you doctor, right? You're like blah, right? And they call it like in psychology a mixed feeling, right? I'm having mixed feelings about ordination, right? Kind of sounds like I'm getting cold feet, right? But what the idea is, because like you guys, as you guys see in my lens, it sounds like a success story. Like wow, PK is getting ordained, right? But you haven't seen behind the scenes the cost it costs to actually get there, right? You didn't really get to. I complain about it a lot, but you didn't really get to see like the pain I have gone through. That I had to go through seminary again, basically, in this super boring thing where I had to like basically lie a little bit because my theology and their theology don't mix a lot, right? And then I come into our district and they complain about like what I believe, and they yell at me every time I don't use non-binary cues, right? And all these weird things, and I'm just like arguing with them like, if God is not the Father, then why did Jesus call God the Father? And they're trying to like basically mansplain it to me. And all this little stuff, right? And all this little tension that I had to deal with, like, right, you're Pastor Chang's son, right? How could you take over, right? All these weird dynamics come in, right? And in the end, like, even though I'm getting ordained, it doesn't feel like much. Why? Because there was a bar set, and many of us, if we continue on this high achieving goal, we're not going to find a lot of joy. And the problem when you don't find a lot of joy is you don't end up loving yourself. And it's rough if you can't love yourself. right? Isn't that what Justin Bieber said? That's why mama don't like you, right? That's not funny either. That was pretty relevant. God, I'm like failing this week. I'm like doing all these cultural cues. No one's getting it. I'm trying to be more relevant. I'm sorry I'm stuck in like the 2015s, right? What? There's a nice trumpet in there. Reminds me of Archie when he was in high school. Okay, if I do more, then we get copyrighted. Okay, anyways, the other side of the story is a self-saboteur, right? You feel like you are in a no-win situation. No matter how much you push, you'll never meet the expectations of your family. So you mess up your life to prove that. You quit. You start quitting. You get numb of addictions. You stay stuck in destructive patterns and underachievements, right? It's just so you can smite your parents and be like, remember you told me that I would fail when I was younger. Now, ha! Right? Wow, that was a big laughter, John. Did you do that to your parents? Right? Some of us we do that, right? Just because we're succeeding in we're doing well in what we're trying to push for, and then the problem is the back of your mind you hear that narrative of what your parents tell you, it could be whatever. It could be my son is not cut out to be a man or something, right? Or I don't know what's going on. This kid, he's so dumb. Right? So even you're passing, pretty good, right? Not great. We don't have to be great. Come on. What is a good grade nowadays? 99, right? I know, right? 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 You didn't get a 99, you? Right? But you're doing well in academics. People are cheering you on, and et cetera, right? And when you're hearing people cheering you on, but then you hear the background of your family origin, you start to snap. Because one of the biggest things that happens a lot of times with self-saboteurs is you are afraid of success. You're afraid of succeeding. Right? Because you don't know what to expect a lot of times when you succeed. Right? Especially with your family of origin stuff. Because the problem is when you succeed and you fail, you don't have anyone to blame. Right? If your parents told you were good for nothing and you cannot do anything, you cannot accomplish anything, and you're accomplishing something, it means you're doing it in your own effort, and when you fail, it'll either reinforce what your parents said about you, so you feel like the repercussion is, you see, I told you were made for nothing. Okay? Rather than realizing oh, I made a mistake. Right? And we oftentimes reinforce that. And so the thing is, when we're succeeding too much, we start to push back and withdraw. We mess up ourselves, so even though you're capable in your projects to get high grades, you choose to dock yourself because you start to procrastinate or you give in, and then you tell yourself, you see, at least I'm doing well, but we do that a lot to ourselves. But the problem is the error in that is you'll never know how good you really are, because the limitation and cap you put on yourself because of what your response is from your family. You could be much better than you think you are. Okay? But there is this underlying tone of fear that happens to you. And so many of us, we respond either or way, right? And it's interesting because we often see both responses in multi-sibling family narratives. Usually the older kid will be the high achiever, and the younger one will be the self-saboteur. Some of you guys will be like, hey, that's not true, right? I'm the smarter one, and I'm the younger one, right? Good for you, right? Good for you. Have a pretzel, right? The problem is a lot of times what happens is you see one sibling overachieving and not seeing the result that they're looking for. And so oftentimes, you observing that in your perspective will be like, then what's the point of trying? My sister, my brother's life is terrible because he has no friends. All he focuses on is getting to the top. I don't want that life, right? But then my parents tell me that I'm good for nothing. So you know what? I'm gonna succeed in something. I'll succeed in proving them right. Good for nothing, right? Things happen in our lives, and some of you guys, you really can be both situationally. Areas that you feel like it's easy to succeed, you high achieve. Like many of us Asians, we will do it in academics, right? We're pretty good in academics, right? Because like, you know, this is what my parents want. Does my parents want me to get good grades and stuff? Yeah, I could do that. That's easy, right? You bump it up, even though like college doesn't matter, but we keep going at it, right? And we're high achievers in there. But then when it comes to like other stuff, like your career, when it's time for you to like look for a job and go into interviews and all these stuff, we self-sabotage ourselves a lot of times, right? We don't take it as seriously as we should. Like, you know, we study like crazy. We'll put all-nighters in as we study. But as we go into our job and shape ourselves, equip ourselves, and manage ourselves, we do we weigh the amount of level we feel to see the difference. Right? And it's because it's just about how we respond. Sometimes some things are easy, so we go after it. Some things are hard, we don't even try. And these are the responses that we tend to take. But what does finding freedom look like then? Right? Really, if you want to find freedom in your family origin stuff, it comes down to this. You have to recognize that you are grown up. All of you guys are adults here in this room, right? Besides Ada and Andreas. Andreas still got some days, right? But even though Andreas is young, he still has to update himself, right? It's just, now that you guys are older, more independent-ish, right? It gets easier as you go past, okay? Like if you're starting to live on your own, you're independent, you're financially sustainable by yourself, it becomes easier. But you have to start to recognize this, right? You are older than you think you are, right? This is why in Genesis 2, and at the end of that chapter, you know, there's this line that says, right, you know, man will leave their mother and father and will unite with his wife, and they two will become one, right? We all remember that, right? Because the idea is one day we're going to leave our parents' the control of our parents, and we're going to create our own individual self, right? And it's always important for us to always remember that. Like, even though, yes, you know, in order, you know, we're gonna be honorable to our parents, regardless of, you know, how our upbringing was. Yeah, we're gonna honor them, but we also have to think for ourselves. We have to stand on our own at times. Eventually, you know, eventually we're gonna be put there. But the problem is, if we don't do that in time, our whole like future can be hindered very dramatically. Especially if we're thinking about what mom and dad will think, right? This is why it's so important that, like, in our traditions and cultures in church. This is why we do infant baptism or infant dedication, right? And I always emphasize the fact is that the baptism has nothing to do with the kid. It's really for the parents. It's a reminder for the parents when they dedicate their child or baptize their child that your kid is not just yours. You're stewarding them because they're the children of God, and our role and duty is to bring them into the maturity in Christ, right? And the people who actually are afraid of, like, you know, especially infant baptism, especially Reformed Church, they make you complain and argue about it. And the biggest reason why, like, people are against infant baptism is because they're scared the kid won't be Christian at the end. And that basically is one, they're living in fear. You're afraid that you cannot get your kid to believe in God, which is totally ludicrous, right? Because the fact is that you have to realize that your kid's not your own. If your kid's not your own and your kid belongs to the Lord is going to take care of them. And for us as parents, our job and duty is to love on them and to know that every situation they're in, that they're redeemed. And this is why we do what we do. And this is why in the Reformed Church we still baptize infants, even though many people, even in our church, don't believe in it. Even upstairs, especially upstairs. And I feel like that's why every time when you do infant baptism, Pastor Chang does a 40-minute like preaching on that one topic. That's what? Infant baptism? But like, why do we? Okay, never mind. No one really cares. Probably on your phone by then, right? Instagram was good. You liked many pictures. Great. Your Snapchat was good, right? You continued on your multiple streaks since childhood. Facebook is good. You know, the marketplace is scary, right? I saw his news feed. It's all about Kanye and Kim Kardashian. I'm just like,
It's changed.
now it's not, because I just said their names, right? But you know, it really does start becoming, because the idea is a lot of times like we still like feel like we need parental consent, and we're not really living as children. I mean, we're not really living as adults, we're living as children. And I think a lot of times when we come in front of our parents, we see ourselves not as adults, right? You could be like 30 years old, and when you look at your parents, Maybe a lot of times you're like, I'm good enough. I'm a man, right? I'm a grown man. I can handle this, right? But then when a topic brings up, you shrivel down into a child. Right? It happens, right? Because we haven't updated in that area of our lives. That like, wait a minute, I'm an adult. Like, I remember like one time I went to my friend's place in college, right, for dinner. It was like senior year time, so we were pretty much old. We're getting our careers ready. And I remember like, you know, this dude, he lived in like Garden City, you know, rich family. His dad was like a high, you know, well-known lawyer kind of ordeal, right? And so we're sitting at a dinner table. You know, ever went to a white dinner table? The weirdest thing. It's very quiet. They try to make small talk, but it doesn't really work. So it's like a really awkward thing. You just swirl the red wine, right? And then like out of nowhere, like my friend was like, "Mom, Dad, do I have permission to use the bathroom?" Like they look weird, I look weird, right? And they were like, I guess, right? And I was like, what the heck? 22, right? And I have, you know, sometimes we forget that we're adults in front of our parents. That's got to be updated, right? Problem is when we see our parents, how old do you think you are? How old are you guys? When you guys just think about it. When you guys see your parents today, or someday, sorry, Margaret, right? All right, when you see them on Zoom, okay, right? Like when you look at them, like how old are you automatically? Alan, when you look at Daddy Lou, how old are you? See, right? Many of us, we do feel younger. Like oftentimes, we see them according to like, unless it was a ritual, you know, that you actually believed in, because they did, right? When you graduated, Alan, you're adult now. You can do whatever. Remember? Okay. Next time, I'm going to record those graduation things and actually like transcribe them for you. I should. Why didn't I think of that? Oh yeah, I can't write Chinese, so times will help. 经济发达, right? Right? Anyways, so you know, we have to start to recognize, like, oh snap! If I'm looking at my dad or my mom and I'm seeing myself in high school, when I'm not in high school, unless you're lying to us and you're in high school, you were just like kind of taller than us. Oh, you're in college, right? You were John Jay, right? So you know, there's something up there. Like, what is the gap between that? Like, we have to figure that out. Or some of us, like, how do we respond knowing that, hey, I am an adult now, right? Because the worst thing and the immature thing to do, it shows that you're not an adult, right? You'll be like, screw you, Dad, I'm a man now. Then you know what he did say, right? If you're a man, then get out, right? Right? You know, that doesn't work either, right? So it's about like, how do we respond with this new freedom? How does this new freedom will look like, right? And without really turning it into a act of rebellion, because that's not what we're calling for. Because then you're not really living as a child of God. You're living in antithesis of God. Because spirit of rebellion is witchcraft, antithesis of God, right? And so this is why Jesus had to ask this weird question, like this weird statement. So when you read in Matthew 10, it's the time when Jesus sent out his 12, right? And he said this weird statement, like, tell them to hate their parents, right? So don't take it out of context, okay? Jesus is not saying, okay, you guys, all of you guys here, you gotta hate your parents if you want to follow Jesus. Some of you guys are like, check, right? No, never mind, right? You know, that's not what Jesus is kind of saying. You know, you have to kind of think about, what is Jesus saying? What is important about this, and what does it have to do with our freedom in this whole issue of family of origin, right? Jesus gave his disciples authority, right? He's like, I'm going to give you authority. I'm going to send you guys 2 by 2, right? But then he started to really talk about like this great warning, right? He's like, I'm going to empower you. You guys are going to heal. You guys are going to be able to, you know, you guys are going to go out there, cast out demons, do all these great things. But I'm going to warn you on these things. And he gave a long list of warnings, right? Be careful. People are going to persecute you. Don't bring anything that you don't need to, right? When you get locked up and stuff, like, rely on the Spirit. The Spirit's going to guide you and tell you what to say. All these things, right? You know, because he's warning them that there's going to be great, you know, trials and difficulty happening when we move in the kingdom, right? As we become believers of God, there's going to be things around us that are going to really come at us. Still, even today, right? There are a lot of things that we hold value and hold truth in faith that, you know, when we leave these doors might not be so true anymore. Right? Law of land is completely different from law of faith a lot of right? And so this is why Jesus says, like, I didn't come here just for peace. I came here with a sword. Why? Because a lot of times we don't really think about this as hard. Like, in order for peace, there's got to be war, right? I know we live in like this modern thing, like peace, man, all this stuff, and we assume like things can be talked out. But you have to realize, even talking out, there's conflict. There's war. It has to be, in order for peace, you have to recognize there's war. But as Jesus says, the war that we face is different from the war in this world. But there is still going to be a war happening. And the problem is, are we going to fight? Right? Peace is going to come. When perfect comes, peace will come. But until then, there is a war happening among us. Right? Warfare is going on even in our faith circles, even all of this. And we have to stand guard. And so he uses this passage that's, from Micah 7:6 that I heard some of you guys cringe and like, what? Especially the daughter-in-law part, right? And you have to realize this. If you read Micah 7, it's a poetic thing about destruction, right? And so like you have to read the context of the poem is it ends with this, like sons will hate their fathers, mothers, and daughters-in-laws and stuff, right? And why? It's because we have to look into the context of that. It's talking about, okay, after that, then the hope that comes. Right? That's what Jesus was trying to point out when he's saying this. And what he's really, really catching on is the fact is that, is God your ultimate? Or is something else your ultimate? Right? So when Jesus brought these 12 guys out there and be like, I'm going to empower you guys to do what I'm doing, but here's my warning for you guys. Am I going to be your ultimate? Is who I am going to be your ultimate? Are you going to really worship the God of heaven? Or are you going to be casted down in fear when you see these things going on around you and persecution happens? When your parents are going to be against you, are you going to stand firm and trust? Right? Because I got to be your ultimate. If I'm not your ultimate, it's going to be hard. Because letting go of fear is such an important piece of what breaking family origin stuff is. Because for like the majority of our lives, our sense of worth. Our sense of worth, acceptance, security, significance comes from our family of origin. A lot of it does come from our family of origin. We understand what it means to be accepted, what it means to be significant, and what it means to be safe from our family. Right? And then as we slowly get older and older and we have our own friend circles and stuff, we start to find acceptance and stuff like that. But it's oftentimes framed, like how will that look like in my life from your family? And so when you're talking about breaking away from that, it's going to be scary. This is why, Paul encourages people in Rome, like, the spirit you received when you came to faith doesn't make you slaves, that you'll be in fear. Rather, you're receiving the spirit of adoption of sonship. You can call God the Father. It's a different familial dynamic from what we're used to. Right? And the question is, are we willing to be bold enough to kind of, at times, in need, when the kingdom stands firm, are we going to put kingdom first, or are we going to put our family of origin, our status, our friendships and stuff on the side, and make God our ultimate? Right? Because like when we are going to go after the kingdom, like there's going to be stuff that used to be beneficial for us that is going to be against us, right? Say like one of these things, like like one example, like since we're talking about kingdom, like say you wanted to be a missionary. How many of you guys want to be missionaries? It is November. November is missionary month, right? Mission month. Anybody want to be a missionary? Kind of funny. Back in the day, a quarter of people in churches tend to have this dream of being a missionary, at least, right? Think about this, right? Think about so imagine like you guys are, some of you guys in school, some of you guys graduated. Imagine like, you guys graduated from school, you're still paying off your college debt, and somehow like you're starting your career off, and somehow like supernaturally the Spirit of God calls you to do a work of missions, right? Calls you to, pack your bags, one-way ticket, go to, what's a good place to go to? I don't want to use Africa again. I used Africa this morning. What? Peru? Peru? Okay. Does Peru need more missionaries? The U.S. Just say you were gonna pack, go on mission, right? And you're excited about this, and I see this a lot. It's kind of funky and funny, right? But you go to your parents and you tell them like, Mom, Dad, like I felt called to go on mission. And they're like, oh, that's great. You're going to go on a short-term mission, right? We're going to go to Africa. You're going to plant a house, and then like, yay. And they take some pictures, come back. I'm like, no, Mom, I'm going there. And then it changes the whole conversation. They're like, no, you can't do that. You cannot do that for us. What about me? You're supposed to be my retirement. All this stuff comes on, right? All these question marks, like how are you gonna pay for your, how are you gonna pay for your debt, right? How are you gonna pay off your college debt, right? How are you gonna pay your taxes, right? When you come back, when you finally give up and you fail because you're gonna fail, right? Because you're gonna come back and your credit's gonna be so terrible, right? You're not gonna be able to rent a house. You're gonna be homeless forever now, right? And they're saying all this stuff, right? What are you gonna do? See, a lot of us, like the fear kicks on, and then we give up on the dreams and calls that God has for us. Happens a lot. But if God is calling us in there, are we going to be bold enough and brave enough? See, in those moments, it really shows who's really our God. See, the problem is a lot of times, like we assume like God is, a idol is going to be some type of like, some deity. Your family of origin can really be your idol. Until you become mature enough to recognize and realize like what faith looks like, it's going to be one of your biggest stumbling blocks. It could be your greatest support. It could also be your greatest stumbling block. Right? So how do you grow up from your family of origin stuff? You have to first acknowledge that there is an issue in your family of origin. See, many don't realize that there's dysfunction in your family in some ways, right? Even in good family dynamics, there's some dysfunction, right? In a good family dynamic, if your family dynamic is good, but the problem is like you still have that fear of, you gotta achieve, you can't disappoint. That's a dysfunction. And if never addressed, that's an issue. Because that issue is going to pass along in your legacy, right? That's why Jesus says, like, I come here to turn tables upside down, right? Mom, turn a man against his father, daughter against his mother, daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. That's funky, right? And that's twice I see from Marva's eyes. You guys know why, though, right? Okay, think about their culture, right? When you get married, where do you live? We're bringing it back in style. You live with your parents, right? And so like when you get married, when you start to get engaged, the guy basically what he has to do is he has to build an extension from his dad's house, and then that will be your home, right, for your wife. So basically, when you get married, the wife comes with you, and basically the guys are quote unquote supposed to do the work, and the wives are supposed to maintain the property, right? And so who's the boss of that? Your mother-in-law, right? That's what we're saying. So Marva, don't disappoint your mother-in-law. That's what we're saying, right? But the thing is, like, what's more important? What your dad is saying to you, son? What your mom is saying to you as a daughter, or what your mother-in-law is saying to you as a daughter-in-law, or is God more important? We have to recognize this, that if it wasn't because of these conversations in church, in faith in Christ about understanding and living, like if Jesus didn't say this in scripture, would we ever acknowledge something's wrong in our family? Like would we, because many of times we try to keep peace rather than make peace at home. We try to keep peace. So even though there's this function in our homes and your friends call it out and be like, yo, Alan, that's kind of weird. And we're like, no, what are you talking about? This is just what the Lus do, right? We kind of like pat it down, right? We're like, this is what we do, man. Don't say that it's bad. Like you whitewash person, right? Like this is what Chinese people do, man. You're not Chinese, you won't know, right? How many guys use that? I used to use that in the Korean church. It works all the time. Like, I'm sorry, I don't know. Right? we use these things, but the fact is that it's a dysfunction, and we have to recognize it, realize it, right? And it's like sometimes like our family is so messed up, but we don't admit it. We just kind of play it off like it's normal, right? Like my first roommate in college, like this dude, like it was kind of funny. So I shook his hand. I called him G baby because we got. I don't want to use real names anymore. When I first met him, he's like, hey, my name is G, right? I'm your roommate. I'm like, that's cool. And then out of nowhere, second sentence, right, was like, yeah, I just came back from Virginia. I just came straight from Virginia this morning because my mom and I had to bail out my stepfather from jail. I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, I was like, what? Like, yeah. And I was like, he's like, yeah, we tend to do this like every other month. Also, I was like, so when I'm rooming with you, you're gonna be going to like Virginia and stuff on a frequent basis. It's like, yeah, probably. I was like, that's a little bit messed up. He's like, yeah, but that's just normal, right? Like, that's not normal, guy. That's really weird. But let me tell you about what happened in my family, right? But no, right? Because we don't recognize this. When God comes into our life, He's not gonna let you stay the way you stay in your messy stuff. He's gonna do something. He's gonna make you sure you do. You have to realize this. God is not calling you out. He's not bringing people around you to call you out just because He wants to like mess you up. He's trying to transform you. One of the hardest things for us to realize is that God does transform us, and God shapes us through a lot of times through trials. And when there's a trial in front of us, our role and our duty as people and following God is we have to pass the test. It's so funny because like many people like will ask things from Jesus, right? They're like, Lord, give me wisdom. Or like, Lord, okay, some of you guys might be more selfish. Lord, give me $1 million, right? There was this random dude that used to go through the Asian circuit, like giving the seminar about like you too can make $1 million, right? And it's so funny because it's like we pray for this stuff, and so God is okay. So if that's what you really want, and God really wants to be a loving God, He's gonna really give you wisdom. But how He's gonna give you wisdom? He's not gonna give you the Solomon wisdom. He's gonna shape you to be a person of character to sustain wisdom. So you're gonna have multiple teachable moments in your life. God's going to shape your character, and sometimes it's going to suck. Sometimes it's going to beat you down to the ends. But why? It's because you asked for it. Like many people that come to me and be like, yo, man, like I'm going through this thing, right? And like especially like leaders, like around me, right? Like Christian, like pastors and stuff, and I'm just like, wait, what you pray for God, right? Like, isn't this what you asked for? You asked to become a better leader. So what's happening in your church where everybody hates you? It's helping you. You're going to become a better leader because you start to realize that you can't please everybody. The only person you have to please is God, not your board. So it's not about what your board tells you, it's about what God is calling you on mission for when you're entering His church. Right? And it's kind of funny because like, yeah, we pray for this stuff. Because God wants to work. God's going to do the work. He's not going to leave you the way you are and just give you blessings. He's going to make sure that you'll be a person that when He gives you blessings, you will sustain it. And sometimes it does require us to acknowledge that there are issues and acknowledge issues at home. So we're not here. He's not revealing issues in your home just so you can be a jerk and be like, Mom, you suck because you did this, and now look, I'm messed up because of you. What he's saying is acknowledging, recognizing that was an issue and has shaped you to become how you respond and currently, even outside of your home. And recognizing, oh, this is where it started, this is where it stemmed. And then you have to recognize, what is your ultimate? We don't admit it a lot of times, but regardless, yes or no, we idolize our family, good or bad. That's why Jesus has to say, well, if you love father or mother more than me, it's not worthy of me. Because God has to be your ultimate. See, many of you guys, even though like you probably hate your parents, but you still do everything you want because there's fear. Where your fear lies is where your ultimate lies. This is why so many times in Scripture they use that word fear to emphasize like fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. The fear of the Lord, yeah, the fear of the Lord, right? And it's not the same fear like your parents' real fear. It's a different fear, of course. But the thing is, the reason why I think they use the same word of fear is because the feelings come from the same place. The feelings feel the same. When God is standing before you, it's the same feeling you would feel like when you're parents are about to beat you. But there's a difference because there's a lovingness after that with God. With your parents, probably not. But that same emotion, that same feeling builds up in you. Right? You know, many of us, because our sense of worth does come from your family, right? And so, you know, our deepest longing and desire is to really be accepted and attention and approval from them, right? And so we do everything that of our humanness to become overachievers, lazy bums and stuff, just so that we can get attention from them, right? And you see, so even though you're like, screw my parents, right? And you do all these weird things, just so they could come to you and be like, what's wrong with you, right? What's happening, right? It's because you want their attention. They're your God, so you're doing anything possible, either achieving or underachieving, just so they would pay attention to you. Means that they're right. Right? And if you don't take care of this, deal with this, handle this, it's gonna pass down. And so the problem is a lot of us, like we see what's happening in our families and we like keep telling ourselves, that's not happening in my home, right? So rather than doing the whole like spiritual like work and healing from our pain, we just tell ourselves, I'm not doing that, I don't like this, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing this, so my family's gonna be perfect because I took care of this and took care of this, took care of that. So then when we finally get married and have kids, our job and duty is gonna end up becoming like, I'm going to basically avoid everything my parents did. And so you start to idolize your household. So if your household is not in order, you freak out, you bug out. If your kids are not behaving, you freak out, you bug out, right? Because the fact is that you turned your family into your ultimate. And so our role and duty is we have to surrender all of that. God has to be your ultimate. See, that's why he says, anyone who loves their sons or daughters more than me is not worthy. God has to be your ultimate in your life. You have to acknowledge that there's an issue. Acknowledge who is your ultimate. And lastly, you're going to have to rely on God and God alone. Right? Because the fact is that if we detach our dependence, like, you know, because our whole worth and value system used to be from our household, and we're detaching from that, we're going to have to lean on something solid. Because if we don't lean on something solid, then the problem is that we're going to lean on anything. Anything that gives us approval, attention, and worthiness, we're going to go after that. And sometimes it might not be good places, right? And this is why sometimes we end up going to rebellion, right? Because we're like, screw you parents, I don't believe in anything you say. So, but I like what my friends say, right? And so what happens with that is, you know, we'll run to anything. But the problem is when that thing collapses in your life, then you're left in pieces, in brokenness, right? Because the problem is, like, honestly, in truth, in fact, is anything tangible in this world will one day disappear. So if our thing of leaning on for approval, sense of worth is on people here, on you know, our careers, our titles, our jobs, these stuff will eventually fade out. They'll pass away. Think about it. You would become CEO of something. Say you're CEO of Twitter and then Elon Musk fired you this week, right? Right? Imagine that was your life. Now where are you? You're nothing. That's why, you know, how many people like come out of retirement not because they need the money? Because they don't know what to do with themselves. Because like their role defined them. If God isn't the one that defines you, you're gonna be messed up again. And you won't know where you stand and where you stand firmly. Right? That's why it says, whoever takes up the cross, whoever does not take up their cross follows is not worthy. Well, you know, Jesus says to take up the cross because, you know, persecution's going to come for them, right? Persecution's going to come. When fear comes, are you going to hold on firm, right? You know, because when you put God ultimate, everything around you might persecute you, even your families. Are you ready for that? Can you live with it? Can you live with the persecutions and limitations and trust in God and God alone? Right? You see, I know we're pursuing this idea, you know, we're pursuing in this retreat about call. And it's kind of funny because ever since I put that up there as our theme, like I just hear a lot of questions about call. And here's the thing, like, are you willing to give up all the securities that you have right now? Even like your messed up dysfunctional family of origin stuff, because you're a high school student in your eyes when you see them and stuff, and just hindering or limiting you. Are you ready to let that go? Even though something, there might be that feeling, that fear, your anxiety of repercussions of what's going to happen. Are you ready to let that go? Because in order for you to get to your calling, these are the stuff that are holding you back a lot of times. We focus too much on what they say, even now. When the things that the weight of what they say should be should be weighted, but we turn it into like that's gold, that's solid, that's truth. And that's a dysfunction. That's an issue. We have to rely on God and God alone. If we're gonna lean on anything, when we move on and transition and update, it has to be on God. If we put our foundation and our trust in anything else, it's gonna collapse one day. And it's going to hurt us. One of the things that I'm glad is that majority of you guys, if not all, of you guys come from a Christian home. So to take up the cross and follow Him in the family of origin stuff isn't that hard. Right? When I chose to pick up the cross and follow Jesus fully, it was a little hard. It wasn't too hard. Right? Luckily my parents were okay with it. But then I also have friends. I have one close friend who's Orthodox Jew. He's an Orthodox Jew, right? Came to faith secretly, right? Because he thought he was old enough, right? He got baptized when he was 22. Thought he was old enough, right? But his parents basically disowned him. No, they didn't help him. They didn't say anything because they embarrassed him. Because the family's embarrassed because of him. Right, the whole community was they shamed the whole family because his son converted to Christ, to Christianity, right? And all of that stuff, he got cursed pretty bad, right? So somehow he was diagnosed with epilepsy, and then it turned into schizophrenia, and it came last time I met him, he was a mess, right? He was completely a mess. You sense heebie-jeebies and bad juju vibes, right? And because he gave into the weight of his family, he this vow from faith, recanted from that, and because he did what he did, his community is not going to receive him. They literally did a kazaza ceremony. I don't know if you guys know, you break the pot, what the prodigal son, remember, they thought that he was going to do, but instead he didn't. The pot of bean, they break it in front of the community, saying that we sever ties. Right, they actually did that to him, so he wasn't accepted from his parents. Right, and I remember seeing him that time, in that moment. I had I was seeing him struggle, those demonic spirits in him and all this stuff, and I'm just listen to my, this stuff is not mental. This stuff are curses. You've been cursed. You allowed this curse to happen. You gave in, and now you have these, these dark things in you. Here's a good thing, I'll set you free. If you want to do it. Are you ready for it? Who wasn't ready? I was someone ready. But it just reminds me that picture that your family of origin has so much power. This is why, my friend Dr. Mercurial says, it's second to God. The weight of your family is second to God. Who's your ultimate? We have to take a good look at ourselves. We have to cross over. You have to ask yourself, are you really an adult? I'm not saying you're immature. Some of you guys are immature. Sometimes some of you guys really want to bring a bat here and just beat you. Right? But I'm not talking about that. But are you really an adult? Because you guys are an adult. Your license, your driver's. Oh, you guys don't have a driver's license. Your student ID says you're an adult. But we don't act like it. Especially we don't act like it in front of our parents. we're basically, you know, oppressed by our parents in some ways when we shouldn't be. I bet you a lot of your parents' eyes, at least by now, they see you as, you know, as adults, man. Some of you guys graduated from college. Some of you guys moved out on your own, living, you know, far away in a different state. Some of you guys have lived far away, different state. You came back after college, right? They see you differently. You're not the same. Yes, they're gonna make those bickering because they forgot. They just remember you that from the time you left. You were a high school student. You have to remind them sometimes, like. You know, I had to remind my parents the first semester. How many of you guys had the first semester blues where like they give you curfew and stuff? No? Wow. See, you guys. You know, I was the one that had to tell them like, yo. Like, how old am I, right? I had to tell them that. And they backed off. But if we don't update our lives, the biggest fear is your calling that God has destined and uniquely created, as we talked about from Ephesians, that from eternity's past, He gave you a destiny from eternity's past, a calling, a special calling besides the adoption, right? We're never going to get there. And that is cosmic treason for what God created you for, and we refuse to go after it because we refuse to update our lives. We let things around us, our family of origin, dictate who we become. It's so sad sometimes. I remember, I think the beginning of this year, I was talking to a PK, right, a pastor's kid, about his life, because like, you know, he's in a different place in his life since I met him. I met him like when he started in college. You know, he was sharing then, you know, his you know, his dreams in the future, and I was telling him like, dude, it sounds like it's not really your dream. It sounds like it's your dad's dream, right? You know, your dad, you know, because your dad's a pastor doesn't mean you need to be a pastor. But he's like, no, I have to be a pastor. And I'm just like, why? He never tells me. I don't know, right? And throughout his college career, his dad basically, you know, his dad was trying. His dad was really like, you know, really wanting him to live that dream. Don't really know if it's his dream or not then still yet. But his dad, you know, trusted him. You know, youth groups, right? He was supposed to lead a youth group. He failed it. Terrible, right? His dad left that church. He went to another church. All the kids followed this kid, right? Still, like, neglected them. His dad failed in that church. Went to another church. Still, those kids followed him. Until like a couple of years ago, his dad left that church, started basically a house church in his own house. All the kids follow this stupid kid, right? And I was telling him, like, dude, like, what are you gonna do? These kids, they follow you because they love you, and it's, you know, it's been 8 years I've known you, and your same comment has been, I've been neglecting these kids. So like, by now you have to either ask yourself, like, are you cut out to ministry, or is this not your calling? Maybe you're just a good, you know, friend, a good coach, a good mentor. Like, where do you want to go after this, right? Couldn't answer me. He just told me like, this is what I'm supposed to do. You know, struggling with where he's at. He's not very effective and all this stuff. And recently he got married, and now like he graduated from seminary. He's still working under his dad. And I asked him this, like, dude, what do you want to do really? Like really now, after knowing you for 8 years, you know, you're talking about your failures and success in ministry, you know, a lot of I don't knows. You're married now. You know, your wife is with you in this. Where are you going after this? What do you really want to do? He still doesn't know. And he's still saying like, you know, I feel like I'm supposed to be, you know, I'm supposed to be working under my father and do ministry. And I'm just like in my head, I'm like, dude, your dad failed in 3 different churches and started his own church here, and it's still failing. Is ministry really cut out for you? Because one of the things I was trying to push him, and maybe I'm too nice not to say it, but the fact is, a lot of it is like he's living in the dreams of his dad. right? Because like things that he's passionate about, that he's talking about, like music and stuff, like you see life when you talk about that, but when you talk about like his ministry, it's like, oh, like how can you not see where you're supposed to go? Friends, this is the fear that I have as we talk about this. You have to recognize that there's something up. You have to understand the issues going on. You have to realize what is your ultimate, because a lot of times we would say, like, even as a PK, even as a church leader, we could say like God is my ultimate, but it's a lie. Because something else behind it could be your ultimate. It could be your family. It could be something else, right? A lot of times, like when you start dating, it could be your partner. But something becomes your ultimate, and when that becomes your ultimate, God doesn't have access to you. And when God doesn't have access to you, our life crumbles. That's why we have to lean on God and God alone. And I pray that we would be a community that would really start to lean on God, but it requires you to update where you are. You have to realize your age and act your age and live into your age. Update those areas where you feel like you're still a kid. You got to update those and take care of those, end with it. So then and only then God will give you your destiny. So I pray that today would be the day where we slowly shave off all those burdens from our family of origin. Recognize how we have been responding. And realizing that those stuff needs updating. May your life from now on really just be lived. God and God alone. Respond.
Wanna know you more. change whatever you want to change. My heart is an open space for you to come and have your way. I'm open. I'm open. My heart is an open space for you to come and have your way. I'm open. I'm open. What are you saying? Where are you going? My heart is open wide. My eyes are open wide. What are you saying? Where are you going? My heart is open wide. My eyes are open wide. What are you saying? Where are you going? My heart is open wide. My eyes are open wide. What are you saying? Where are you going? My heart is open wide. My eyes are open wide. My heart is an open space for you to come and have your way. I'm open. I'm open. My heart is an open space for you to come and have your way. I'm open. I'm open. My heart is an open space for you to come and have your way. I'm open. I'm open.
So a lot of times our response, because of our family origin, is really we push it to achieve and don't find the joy anymore, and we don't really love ourselves in the end. Or the fact is that we self-sabotage our lives, and we'll never really know who we really are. And that's not a life that we want, you know. And so I pray deep inside, and I pray for you guys occasionally and often. The fact is that you really live into your identity in Christ, that you know that you are in Christ. And if you are in Christ, that means Christ lives in you by the Spirit that's in you, the Spirit that's fully inherent of His love is in you. And as perfect love comes, then it casts out fear. So in our lives, we always have to recognize the areas of fear. And I think a lot of times in our families, there's a lot of fear in there. And we have to recognize and analyze, why is it still fearful when, as it says, the spirit that we've given is not a spirit of fear. Or as John says, that perfect love casts out all fear. It means that we haven't surrendered that to God fully. And we can easily analyze this in your families by how old you feel. So I want you guys to just imagine with me. Imagine like you're, this is free counseling, I guess. Don't do this exercise. What was the last time you had an altercation or some bad vibes with your parents of some sort? Could be mom and dad, whoever. Ask yourself this. Yes, you could be, you could be whatever age, you could be in the past. Try to find a recent moment. The more recent you are, because the more recent you are, the more shaped and immature you are. Remember the scene in your head. Remind yourself that. In your mind, how old were you? How old were you? How old were you emotionally, internally? ask you guys, the second question is, how old were you really? And what caused that gap? So what was the story? How old were you? How old were you really? And so now knowing who you are and what you know, how would you have been your actual age in front of that, in front of your parents in that scenario? How would it look like? What would it look like? Holy Spirit, I pray for inspiration. What would be their response if they were actually grown up and updated their lives? Or would you play that back to them? Will the fear cast out because we invite you in that scenario? For many of you guys, I believe it's going to be a different story from how it played out in real life. Pray that we really start to live life as where we are, not where we were. So Heavenly Father, we ask for your presence. For all the friends here, Lord, even though our family origin stuff, as we have unpacked for the past 5 weeks, some of it is heavy. But Lord, you have given us a spirit that we can call you Father. And we recognize, Lord, our parents are just a mere reflection of who you really are. For you are much greater, you are much better, you are so good. So may your love really come upon us. Transform us from the inside out. Help us to update ourselves to realize who we are now. And Lord, slowly start to loosen the reins that our family of origin has upon us. Lord, may you even redeem that too, regardless of the story that was played. So may we uphold and lean on the firm foundation of the cross. Of your love, O God, the Christ who died for us to prove to us our worth. And may no longer our worth be found in earthly means, in tangible ways, but Lord, may we remind ourselves that our worth and value is settled on the cross. It was done once and for all 2,000 plus years ago. And Lord, that has been taken care of. So we live in the future with fearless, without anxiety, without worries. Because Lord, we knew one thing, that no matter what, you will never be disappointed at us. For you love us. But that's who you are. So I pray this into you guys. May the love of God, really, the love of God, because He's a lover, be felt in you. And when that love comes into your heart, you realize who you really belong to. And you start to live out who you really are, what your destiny really is. May the bonds and the holds that comes from your family start to be unreigned, so that you may live free and wild in the boundaries and love of the kingdom. It's time to go. Oh, Marva, sorry.
We just laid down the burdens from our family of origin today. God will not let these chains remain in us, let these curses just continue to wreck our lives. But God, when we see you, when we walk towards you, just don't let us stay down, God. Let us be free. And may your will be done in our lives. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
By saying this, may the Lord your God sanctify you through and through, and may your whole body, soul, and spirit be held blameless until the coming of the Lord Jesus Christ. And may you know this, he who is faithful, he will definitely do it. Amen. So guys, go in peace today, and may you have a wonderful day as we celebrate Jason and Melody's home that they bought years ago. But yay!